Today we are going to look at the idea of sovereignty in your life, or maybe better put, we are going to ask how you can experience more sovereignty, or another way to put it would be how you can energetically embody more sovereignty. So you'll notice here that the Nine of Pentacles is in the middle, because to me the Nine of Pentacles really represents sovereignty. Wow, this is already a powerful reading. So I'm pulling the cards here. I will explain what they mean in a moment. But before we get to that, the reason I chose the Nine of Pentacles to represent sovereignty is because I think, a lot of times I think of the Nine of Pentacles representing abundance to a certain extent, also like self-sufficiency and sustainability. But what I really love, there's many things I love about the Nine of Pentacles, but one is that the grapes in the background represent someone who is very skilled, because grapes, they require a lot of skill to grow them well. And so when I think of the Nine of Pentacles, I think of not just like abundance that you might receive like by winning the lottery, or by, something going viral, or an inheritance. It's this like deep level skill that you can count on. You've built yourself to be a skilled, mature, wise person. And so there's a maturity and wisdom with the Nine of Pentacles that I really love. I also, something I always love about the Nine of Pentacles, and the standard depiction of it as we see here, it's yellow. The sky is yellow, which is funny, right? But to me, what that always represents is the solar plexus chakra. The solar plexus chakra is the chakra that's right above our belly button, and it represents personal power. And so there's something with the Nine of Pentacles where it's like it's independent and it's interdependent. So this person who's embodying Nine of Pentacles energy, or we can say for this reading sovereign energy, is independent and interdependent. It's a person who understands how to embody that energy, but minimizes codependent energy. So this is a person who knows how to get his or her needs met in healthy ways, okay? And knows how to help others get their needs met in their communities and connections and collaborations in healthy ways. And so I think it's just such a beautiful depiction of sovereign energy. So with that being said, let's talk about the spread a little bit. This spread actually comes from the Earth Magic Oracle deck, and it's one I'm relatively new to. It's called the Cross, and technically it's a 5-card spread, but when I've used it in my own life, the first card right in the middle represents the issue. And so what I have done, and the way I've used the spread and the way it's been the most powerful for me, is I've chosen a card, a tarot card, to represent the theme of the reading. So instead of just being what is my issue, I'm like, okay, so for this reading, it's let's have a conversation with Source, with Spirit, with Mother God about sovereignty. So if you are someone coming to a reading and you're wanting to understand how to embody more sovereignty in your life, this is your reading. This is what this is about. Now, card 1, we had 2 cards come up for spot 1 and 2. So spot 1 represents the subconscious influence of which you are unaware. And then this pile 3, so this is 1, 2, 3. So we chose 1 out of the deck. It's the Nine of Pentacles is representing sovereignty. In the spread, it says represents the issue, okay? Card 2, so pile 2 over here, is the subconscious influence of which you are unaware. Card 3 is the external influence of which you are aware. And then we're going to do 4 and 5. I'm going to pull them here. And 4 is what is required for a resolution, and 5 is resolution. So this has been, again, a new spread to me in my life, in my personal life. A new and powerful spread. It has been really eye-opening. Ooh, there it came. Did you see that fly out? Okay. 6 of Swords for card 4, and then card 5, please. Excuse me. It just has helped me bring a lot of things from unconscious to conscious. And I've just really, I don't know, I've just like found, for some reason I found like a lot of joy and a lot of clarity in choosing the card to be in the middle that represents what I want more information about. You know, like the energy I want to, I'm declaring the energy I want to embody more. So again, in this reading, it's the Nine of Pentacles energy. It's sovereignty, which encompasses wisdom and abundance, which encompasses steadfastness, roots, sustainability. It encompasses independence and interdependence. All of that to me kind of embodies sovereignty. And so this final card represents the resolution. So you might be coming to this reading and it's because you feel like you're very much lacking in sovereignty, or you might be coming to it because you are just beginning to awaken to the idea of sovereignty. You might be coming to it well on your way to really, experiencing sovereignty a lot in your life, and you're just looking to make some tweaks to gain some insights so that you can experience more and more. I think sovereignty is such a beautiful goal for all of us because, again, to me, it's not like individualistic. It's interdependent, right? And I don't know, I just think it's such a beautifully rich, like in terms of like simple and complex idea. You know what I mean? Like sovereignty is rich. It's like richness. It's true richness. Because again, it's embodying wisdom, but also simplicity and sustainability, but also like the luxuries of life. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. And the Tower. Okay. So bottom of the deck is the Tower. So don't get scared here by the Three of Swords or the Tower, because these are positioned positively. So we're going to look at the positive aspects of those cards. Okay. So first things first, you have a lot of sword energy in this reading. We have the Four of Swords, the Six of Swords, the Eight of Swords, and the Three of Swords. So, that's interesting. We're doing a reading with a Pentacles card at the center. The Pentacles a suit in the tarot to me represents like the tangible aspects of being alive, of getting our needs met, right? And no pentacles show up in terms of what's surrounding it, which is very interesting. And I think that's like often how life is, right? So when we're looking at, obvious issues, so in this case, like the obvious issue of sovereignty, how healthy are we getting our physical needs met? How well are we getting our physical needs met? And it seems that the message that wants to come through here is it doesn't have a lot to do with the tangible aspects of life. It has more to do with the intangible aspects of life, the sword energy. So what does the sword energy represent? Well, to me, it represents things like clear thinking, choice energy, boundaries, strategy. So it's like what we're doing with our thinking is often what the sword's energy represents. And so there's definitely that theme completely surrounding this this idea of sovereignty for you. Now, before we get to the specifics of each card in the spread and the position, let's talk about the Tower for a little bit. Oh, look at that. I just pulled that up. Oh my gosh, and there's another Swords card. So it's Nine of Swords in reverse, which is so beautiful because you got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, 5 Swords cards. So Nine of Swords upright often means just like never-ending nightmare, just like worry, worry, worry. So the fact that it's in reverse at the bottom of the deck, I think, is such a beautiful, beautiful sign. Now, the bottom of the deck to me is often kind of just indicates the underlying energy of everything. And so to have the Tower there, a lot of people can be scared of the Tower. Sometimes I think that's because of the, standard depiction of it. It looks kind of scary. But the Tower card is really one of my favorite cards in the deck because it means deep and meaningful change. And I don't look at it, I don't typically aspect it in a negative way. And specifically because it's at the bottom of the deck, whenever I look at the bottom of the deck, that is always positively aspected to me because it's that underlying energy. It's kind of the why behind the what of what Spirit's asking you to do. And I don't ever think there's a negative why for what Spirit's asking you to do. So when I see the Tower here, I see that there is some deep and inevitable and long-lasting change that wants to happen. And the change that happens with the Tower, sometimes it's painless, sometimes there's discomfort with it. But the good news, regardless of whether there's short-term pain and discomfort or not, is that it's change that needs to happen. Because the Tower, you can see here in this depiction of it, it's a structure that has no exit. And so what's always said is that the Tower has to crumble so that these people can escape the confines of what they have built. And so and inevitably the Tower does crumble because it's not built on a solid foundation. And so this is change that is, whether in the short term or not, is going to lead to long-term detoxing of that Nine of Swords energy, long-term detoxing of that worry. So in other words, long-term, deep-level peace. So with that being said, let's talk about position 2 here and position 3. So in position 2, the Wheel of Fortune and the Four of Swords came out. In position 3, Temperance and the Eight of Swords. So position 1 represents what is like unconsciously going on that you are not aware of prior to this reading. And position 3 here represents what is externally going on that you are aware of, okay? And so let's talk about the external part first, because you have more awareness of this than of what is going on but you're unconscious of. So in position 3, we have the Eight of Swords with Temperance. So it seems you are constricted in some way and you're aware of this. So maybe it's a constriction having to do with your health. Maybe you're not able to do what you've been able to do in the past with your body. Maybe it's a constriction in regards to your time or your money. But there's also healing present and you're aware of this healing. So Temperance to me is a card of healing through rebalancing. And so it seems like you're in the midst of some sort of rebalancing, but there's also constriction present. And it's uncomfortable constriction in some area of your life. And what is actually going on, or I shouldn't say this is actually going on, but what's going on at maybe a deeper level, what's going on that you're unconscious about, is Four of Swords and the Wheel of Fortune. So this is incredibly beautiful. Four of Swords is a deeply healing card through rest and meditation and stillness and knowing thyself. And through that, it seems you are, I was going to say capitalizing, but what am I trying to say? You are allowing the Wheel of Fortune to turn in your favor. So although it seems some discomfort present. Again, here we have the Eight of Swords. We have the Tower, which can, be uncomfortable as you go through it, as we go through Tower moments and seasons. They're not always easy, but they are eventually always incredibly fruitful. So there's some discomfort here, but whether you consciously know it or not, and you probably aren't as conscious about it, or weren't prior to coming to this reading, there is deep level healing and like fortune in your favor. And so one way that I utilize this spread in my life is to remember that when I start to feel this way, so in your case, like the Eight of Swords and Temperance, so this idea that like I'm trying to heal, I'm trying to rebalance, but I still feel constricted, to then remind yourself like that's the obvious thing that you feel, right? But this is also going on. There is deep level healing and there is a turning of fortune in your favor also happening. Because I think otherwise we can get sucked into these like not so fun rabbit holes of questioning ourselves and of just like only acknowledging what's obvious about our situation, right? Which is probably what feels the most obvious is this Eight of Swords. It probably gets your attention the most. It's just that like constriction. I can't maybe do what I want to be doing. But there seems to be a purpose to that constriction. And again, as this is happening more obviously, the Four of Swords and the Wheel of Fortune is happening at an unconscious level, which is beautiful, beautiful healing en route to more richness in your life, which is just certainly in line with the theme of sovereignty here. So let's go to card 4, which represents what is needed to provide a resolution. Okay, and I think that so in this reading, what that means is, resolution would mean you're more often than not embodying this sovereign energy. And so what is needed is a Six of Swords, which is a moving on card. To a certain extent, it's kind of giving me the vibes in this reading of the Eight of Cups, which is a release card. Oh my gosh, and you know what? A few days ago, I recorded a reading, and I believe the Eight of Cups was a main message in it. So I'm going to link that reading up in the description because I'm getting the sense that that might be helpful for you. Because I don't always get the Eight of Cups vibe with the Six of Swords. So the Six of Swords means you're like taking what you've learned in life, so that is represented by those six swords, and you're moving on to a different shore, to something different, to calmer waters, right? So that doesn't always mean that you're releasing what no longer serves you, and or walking away from people or communities or collaborations or projects that no longer serve you. But I'm definitely getting that vibe here, maybe because it's positioned in more of like an advice position of like, this will lead to more sovereignty. But I think there's this like willingness to, even if it's not giving you personally Eight of Cups vibes, like a release of walking away, I think there's a willingness to go to different shores, experience new things, expand your horizons, do things differently. That kind of willingness of, instead of getting into like our, just like doubling down on routines or doubling down on, this, that, or the other thing, there's like a willingness vibe in here. And for some of you, it will have to be willingness to release and walk away. That's not going to be the case for everybody, but for some people that will be the case. But it's giving me definitely a willingness vibe. Now let's talk about the Three of Swords, because the Three of Swords is in the position of resolution. So to me, it is positively aspected because it is, Spirit's never walking us towards a resolution that isn't like actually resolved, isn't actually positive, right? And so the beautiful like vibe I'm getting from this Three of Swords card in this reading is this capacity for emotion, some of the deepest emotions of being human, and some of that is grief. So Three of Swords traditionally can be thought of as a negative card. It's deep heartbreak. But so as I say that as a resolution, I certainly don't mean to imply that like you're going to have things that you will feel grief about. I think instead what it is that you're no longer scared of grief and you have been willing to feel grief about the past. So I don't feel like it's anything like, oh, something bad is going to happen. I think it is, I'm just getting a much more of like a capacity sense from the card. Like you have capacity for life, for the heartbreaks of life. And I think sometimes we think that like the things that we want, so sovereignty, abundance, so on and so forth. I think sometimes there's parts of us that think those things come through some sort of like escape. Like we just like escape worry, the Nine of Swords, we just like escape somehow. When more and more I'm becoming aware that I think these amazing like experiences that we want of life, these character traits that we want to embody, they come through capacity, not escape. And I think that's really what I'm getting with this Three of Swords card, especially because I think heartbreak and grief is really is probably the hardest for all of us to feel as humans, right? Typically, instead of feeling grief, we get angry. We have more superficial emotions. But when we can be a person who is willing to feel the heartbreaks of life, I think those people who have grown their capacity to feel the heartbreaks of life are some of the safest emotionally safe people on the planet, because they're not doing all of these things unconsciously to not feel. And so there seems to be something here with that energy that actually you are going to grow in your experience of sovereignty as you're almost paradoxically willing, again, there's the willingness coming up, willing to feel the heartbreaks of life. And it seems like whatever you are rebalancing here, so, again, that's showing up in the Eight of Swords and the Temperance, like whatever you're healing that feels constricted. So again, if that's like a health issue, if that's a financial issue, if that's a relationship issue, I think the resolution of, so whatever obviously difficult at the more root level is some sort of lack of sovereignty, right? But the resolution of this thing that's more obviously difficult, I think the root healing comes from this willingness to feel grief, to feel heartbreak. And as I say that, I really want to, encourage you to get the support in whatever way you need and whatever way makes sense for you in this process, because grief feeling is no joke. It's just no joke. I don't know why I'm laughing at that, except for, I guess sometimes if you don't laugh, you cry. So in my own way, I understand this journey, this story that the cards are displaying, because there is a lot of my own journey has been a willingness to feel grief, and where I have felt bound is usually to a certain extent kind of holding me in place so that I'm willing to feel. And through feeling, we really learn and grow. It's when we're trying to escape our feelings that there is, that is the ultimate stuckness. And I'm really getting that sense here, that there's like something to do with sovereignty is you not escaping your feelings. And to be fair, like the Swords cards don't often, aside from Three of Swords, I mean, they relate to our feelings, but the Cups energy is usually more feeling energy. Oh, interesting. And then the Temperance card, the rebalancing of cup energy. Look at that. But I think there's something here about how when we aren't feeling, a lot of times we take that sort of choice and we take that power of thinking and we use it improperly because we are avoiding feeling. Do you know what I mean? When we are willing to become more comfortable with the hard feelings of life, I think we almost paradoxically become better thinkers. Do you know what I mean? Because then our choices and our strategies and our thinking abilities aren't being corrupted by our wanting to escape our feelings in some way. And so there might be something here too about emotional intimacy, as a way just to kind of sum this up. I think first and foremost, emotional intimacy with yourself. But then it also might extend into your closest relationships. The more you can build your skills and capacity for emotional intimacy, that seems to be where your big and important, or I shouldn't say small but important, and maybe sometimes big steps towards establishing your sovereignty more and more in your life is in that emotional intimacy realm. And so it might be helpful for you just to maybe start by researching that term, researching it on YouTube, or putting emotional intimacy in Google and then adding resources or books, because I think there is definitely something here with that could be incredibly helpful. Because I'm just with the resolution being the Three of Swords, meaning when you when you more and more are embodying Nine of Pentacles energy, sovereign energy, there is also this Three of Swords present. And again, that certainly, that does not mean you have something to be worried about. I think, again, what it is saying is it means that when that sovereignty energy is present, you are more and more someone who has the capacity to deal with the heartbreaks of life well, and to feel the heartbreaks of life first. Feel them, and then do, instead of letting the fear of the heartbreaks of life unconsciously drive you, something else is driving you. And that something else is this pull towards sovereign, rich energy versus the fear of scarcity or the fear of heartbreak or the fear. So like instead of, it's like almost like you shift from, instead of playing not to lose, you play to win. Like, as cliche as that sounds, but it's really, as I'm like speaking all this out, I think there's something there where as you are, for you, there's some sort of unconscious thing going on that what blocks you from your experience of sovereignty is a playing not to lose. However, because that has been what you've been doing for so long, it's probably like you've almost been a fish in water where you think you're playing to win, but you might be playing not to lose. So that could look like escapism, trying to avoid intimacy with yourself or others. That could look like simply trying to avoid failure versus really going towards success. And there's just something here, like, so that seems like an obvious or an easy shift. Like, okay, now I'm just going to play to win. But how do we actually do that, right? Like, how do we go from I'm playing not to lose to I'm playing to win? There's reasons, and there's good reasons why we operate from one way of thinking. And there is a real like bridge that has to be, or a gap that has to be bridged of how we do it the other way. And I think that what's being said here is part of bridging that gap is a willingness to feel, a building capacity to feel. Another part, again, is this willingness in general, willingness to do things differently, willingness to see things differently, willingness to expand your horizons, to go to new shores, to walk away and release if that is necessary. And then to see that any constriction in your life, anything you're actively working on healing, is there for a really beautiful purpose. It's not an indication you're doing something wrong. It is there to help expand your capacity, which ultimately leads to sovereignty. And then behind the scenes just meaning what is actively happening, but is internal and was likely unconscious before this reading, is that you are doing some deep resting and healing that is helping you turn the wheel of fortune in your favor and make really important life-lasting, lifelong changes that liberate you from never-ending nightmares and lead you to more peace and the experience of this Nine of Pentacles, which again, today we're labeling with the word sovereign energy. So with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. So what am I trying to say? Whoever this reading is for, so the collective that this reading is for, this is not easy energy. So, and when I say that, I don't mean you have anything to fear about your future. I feel like you've already gone through a lot. And I almost feel like saying like the worst is behind you. So what I'm trying to say is you have already built your capacity. You're someone who is like letting yourself go through the complexities of life instead of just like shortchanging yourself of the organic healing and growing process. You're like letting things unfold. And I have a lot of respect for people like you, because ultimately, again, the outcome is this deep lasting change in someone who is emotionally safe and has the capacity to hold space for your own life and then for others. You are growing in your ability to hold the complexities of life with care. And, and that's actually, that's like another nice way of like summarizing what I'm feeling from this Three of Swords is like you're becoming the person who can hold your own heart and other people's hearts, your own sorrows and other people's sorrows, your own, just like the straight up complexities of life. You're becoming someone who can hold that with care instead of shame, instead of judgment. And through this process of becoming that person, you are unlocking your sovereign nature more and more and more. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I certainly wish you all the best.